The morning after we buried my wife, I was still wearing the black suit when my daughter, Danielle, looked me in the eye and said, "Mom's gone. You can't just sit around anymore. Either get a job or pack your things. This house is ours now." I nodded. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked out onto the porch and sat there till midnight. What she didn't know was that Maeve left a second will, hidden in the lining of her old sewing bag, and that document changed everything. This Thanksgiving, I walked back into the house she tried to sell, with the county clerk, the deed, and the nameplate with my name still on it. Stick around to hear what happened next. And let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? The morning sky above Pacific Grove was layered in mist, the kind that made the horizon disappear into the sea. The waves rolled in with a quiet rhythm, soft and constant, like the breath of someone sleeping deeply. I stood still, holding the urn that contained Lorraine's ashes. My daughter, Danielle, was beside me, at least physically. Her body was here, in a black coat too formal for her long hair pinned back, but her eyes flicked constantly to her phone, her fingers scrolling as though the ocean, the wind, and her mother's memory weren't worth pausing for. I loosened the cap on the urn. The ashes fluttered, catching the breeze before vanishing into the tide. For a moment, I felt like I could hear Lorraine's laugh in the wind, light, defiant, unforgettable. We had come to this beach many times when Danielle was young. Lorraine always said she wanted to return here, not in a casket, but as part of the sea. I turned to Danielle, hoping for some trace of shared emotion, but her screen was glowing. "You good?" she asked flatly, not even looking up. I nodded, but inside, something shifted, like a door softly closing. Back at the house, the smell of food still lingered from the memorial lunch. Neighbors had brought over casseroles, desserts, and cheap wine, offerings to grief. The last guest left around dusk. I sat quietly in the kitchen, staring at Lorraine's chair. For 43 years, she sat in that spot every morning, always with a chipped blue mug in her hand and half a crossword done. Danielle entered, opened the fridge, and pulled out a sticky note. She pressed it to the door. "Found some part-time desk jobs hiring this month. Thought you could try one." Her voice didn't carry sympathy, just an administrative finality. I stared at the yellow paper. "Today?" I asked, trying to keep my tone even. "You give me a job list the same day we say goodbye to your mother?" Danielle shrugged, reaching for her phone again. "We all gotta move on. Dad." I didn't raise my voice. "Would your mom have wanted this?" She didn't answer. The silence between us was louder than anything she could have said. That night, the quiet in the house felt heavier than grief. I tried to pay the gardener online, just one of the small tasks Lorraine used to handle. I logged into the joint account we'd shared for decades. But something was off. Access denied. My name had been removed. I called the bank, heart tightening in my chest. "Mr. Whitlock, the account now lists Danielle Whitlock as the sole primary holder," the woman on the line said calmly. "You're listed as secondary with limited access." I hung up and walked to her room, knocked gently. She answered in sweats, hair wet from a shower. "It's just easier this way, Dad," she said. "I'll take care of the bills now. Don't stress." "But I didn't ask you to," I replied, but her door was already closing. Next morning, I smelled coffee, not the usual kind. Lorraine had her own blend, dark roast, always brewed strong. When I stepped into the kitchen, Danielle was drinking from the chipped blue mug, Mom's mug. She never used it before. After a few sips, she dumped the rest into the sink like it was water, rinsed the mug, wiped it dry, and placed it upside down in the cabinet. Something inside me tensed. That mug was sacred, not for its value, but for its memories. Seeing it treated so casually felt like watching Lorraine's presence being rinsed away. 2. Later that day, Danielle rushed out, saying she had errands. "Be back late," she called over her shoulder, car keys jangling. The house fell into silence again. I sat in the living room, opened the old photo album Lorraine kept on the shelf, but some photos were missing, ones of our family vacations. Danielle in pigtails. Lorraine at the Grand Canyon. I flipped through the pages faster, my breath catching. Lorraine, I whispered, holding the album like it might dissolve. What's happening to our daughter? The breeze slipped in through a cracked window, lifting the curtain gently. The morning light touched the empty side of the bed where Lorraine used to sleep. Everything was being erased, piece by piece. My eyes drifted toward her old writing desk. We hadn't opened it in years, since before the diagnosis. I stood up, my knees stiff, my fingers trembling slightly as I reached for the drawer. I turned the brass key I'd kept tucked in my shaving kit for decades. The drawer gave a soft creak as it slid open, reluctant to expose what it had guarded since Lorraine's last days. Dust coated the edges. Inside, a single folder sat untouched, brown, thick, and neatly labeled in her handwriting, in case she changes. It was unlike Lorraine to doubt anyone, especially Danielle. My wife had defended her through every late-night call, every teenage tantrum, even after that episode in college. For Lorraine to leave behind something with that title, it froze me. The paper felt brittle in my hands as I opened the folder. Several letters rested inside, folded with care and clipped together by color, one in blue ink addressed to me, one in black to Danielle, and one with a formal header for a man named Curtis Rhines, a lawyer. I recognized the name from old insurance documents. I unfolded the letter with my name on it. Lorraine's handwriting had always been elegant, but there was tension in these lines, some rushed, some almost too neat. It began, "If you're reading this, it means something between you and Danny isn't right. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's everything, but trust your instincts." My thumb hovered over the line. I reread it. Trust your instincts. She knew. It wasn't just grief distorting my view of Danielle. Lorraine had sensed something too, had seen something she couldn't bear to confront while alive. The letter went on to describe small moments, a missing checkbook, strange bank transfers Lorraine didn't remember authorizing, Danielle intercepting mail by accident, and the growing coldness. "I've watched her pull away from who she used to be," Lorraine wrote. "Not all at once, like peeling wallpaper, quiet but constant." My chest tightened. The woman I married had always believed people could change for the better. For her to document these doubts, it was a cry she hadn't voiced aloud. I folded the letter back carefully, trying to blink away the sting behind my eyes. And then, something unexpected. As I reached for the last page, my hand brushed against the underside of the drawer. It felt uneven. I ran my fingers along the panel. There, taped beneath it, was a red envelope. It took effort to peel it away gently. Inside were banking documents, neatly folded and stamped. The account was under my name only. Opened 2 years ago. I didn't remember doing this. Monthly deposits. Consistent. Generous. Lorraine had been putting money away for me, quietly. The current balance, $86. $340.87. My breath caught. She'd known. She'd prepared. For what? I sank into the chair next to the desk, envelope still open in my hands. It felt like Lorraine had reached across time, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "I didn't forget you." There'd been days I wondered if grief had made her absent in her final months. Now I realized she had been watching, calculating, protecting, preparing for a moment just like this. I picked up the phone and dialed Danielle. It rang twice. Voicemail. I texted, "We need to talk. Call me." No response. I called the bank next. After verifying my identity, the agent confirmed it. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore, that account is fully active, and the beneficiary is listed solely as you." I thanked her quietly and hung up. The air in the room felt different. Heavier, yes, but clearer, too. I whispered aloud, "Lorraine, why didn't you tell me?" Maybe she'd been afraid I'd confront Danielle, or maybe she knew I wouldn't believe her back then. That night, I sat on the back porch as the sun dipped behind the cypress trees. The mug in my hand had long gone cold, but I hadn't sipped it anyway. I watched shadows stretch across the lawn and made a decision. This ends here. Tomorrow, I'd call that lawyer. Curtis Raines. Lorraine had left a trail. I owed it to her, to myself, to follow it, before heading back inside. I slipped her letters into the wall safe behind the bookshelf. As the lock clicked shut, headlights swept across the living room window. Danielle's car. She hadn't said she was coming. I stood by the doorway, uncertain whether to hide the envelope or hold it in plain sight. She stepped out, holding a thick stack of papers in one hand. Her face was unreadable. No grief, no warmth. Just a businesslike calm that made my stomach tighten. Danielle stood at the edge of the porch like she owned the place. Not a word about Lorraine, not a glance toward the flower pot her mother had planted. Just a manila folder in her hand and a face like stone. "I thought we should sort out some final things," she said, like we were closing out a utility bill. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't wait for an invitation. Inside. The air still smelled faintly of the rosemary Lorraine used in the kitchen. Danielle moved straight to the table and opened the folder, her fingers brisk and mechanical. I noticed how she didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the ashes we'd just scattered a day ago. She spread the documents across the table. "These are just to help streamline everything," she said. "Power of attorney, bank access, stuff like that. It'll save a lot of confusion down the line." My name caught my eye, misspelled. A small thing, but enough to set something off inside me. I pulled my glasses down, pretending to study the pages carefully. "And this," she continued, "is what Mom would have wanted. She told me years ago that if anything happened, I should step in and help manage things. Take the stress off your plate." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I nodded slowly. Buying time. "Did she mention that to me? I don't recall." Danielle shrugged. "She probably didn't want to worry you. Anyway, you can just sign here at the bottom. That'll make everything official." I traced the line where my signature was supposed to go. My gut tightened. Something was off. I looked at the rest of the page. Legalese I couldn't quite follow, but the wording gave her sweeping control. Not temporary help, total authority. She excused herself to take a call, stepping outside onto the porch. I waited until the door clicked shut, then pulled the documents closer. Nestled between the forms was a bank statement I hadn't seen before. It showed a withdrawal, $9,400, from our joint account. The date stopped me cold. 3 days before Lorraine's funeral. The signature on the withdrawal slip. It was mine, but I never signed it. And the pen stroke. It looped too high, too clean. Lorraine always said my signature looked like someone trying to hold a pen with gloves on. I snapped a photo with my phone, hand trembling just enough to blur the first image. I took another. Clear this time. I replaced everything just as it was and closed the folder gently, as if not to wake something dangerous. When Danielle came back in, I smiled. "I'll need some time," I said, voice even. "Just to review everything properly." She nodded too quickly. "Of course. Dad, take your time, just sooner the better." Her words were casual, but there was tension in them, like she knew the longer I waited, the more I might discover. After she left, I sat in Lorraine's chair, the one she always curled up in during late-night Jeopardy reruns. I opened my notebook and wrote 3 words. Call Curtis Raines. Monday morning. First thing. Later that night, I wandered through the bedroom, not sure what I was looking for. Comfort. Maybe. Answers. Closure. I found none. But tucked in the top drawer of her dresser, nestled beneath a worn scarf, was Lorraine's old phone. It was still warm from the day's heat, still locked behind a passcode I didn't know. I held it in both hands like a fragile relic and whispered to the dark. "Lorraine, what else did you know?" No answer. Of course. Just the soft hum of the night beyond the window. I turned to the laptop she'd used in her final months. It sat quietly on her writing desk, the screen long dormant. As I reached to open it, I noticed something stuck to the back. A yellow post-it. 5 words, in her handwriting. Ask Curtis about hospice forms. Hospice? My hand froze mid-air. Curtis Raines greeted me at the door of his office like we were old friends. Maybe we were. Once. Back when Lorraine and I still sent Christmas cards and Danielle still called just to say goodnight. But this morning, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Come in, Frank. Sorry to keep you waiting." I stepped into the office. Dark wood shelves, the smell of leather and old paper. The kind of place built to make people feel small and sign things they didn't understand. "I got your message," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Something about hospice forms?" I nodded and pulled Lorraine's sticky note from my pocket, gently unfolding it like scripture. "Ask Curtis about the hospice forms." When I said her name, Lorraine, his face twitched. Barely, but I'd seen enough courtroom drama to recognize a tell. "She left this behind," I said, placing the note on the desk between us. "I figured you'd know what it means." Curtis leaned back in his chair. "Lorraine, she was always meticulous, but I'm not sure what exactly she was referring to." He cleared his throat. "Hospice forms. It might have just been the standard end-of-life documentation." "But she didn't trust Danielle near the end," I said. He went still. "Curtis." I leaned forward, voice low. "Did Lorraine change something in her will before she passed?" He hesitated too long. That was answer enough. He turned to a file cabinet, sliding open the bottom drawer. From inside, he pulled a manila folder. "Whitmore Estate, final." I watched his fingers as he flipped through it, his brow furrowed. A page was missing, clearly. There was a mark where a paperclip had once clamped something in place. He said nothing. "Is something wrong, Curtis?" I asked. He blinked, closed the folder. "Would you like some coffee?" No. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. But the air between us changed. No longer two old friends, but something else entirely. "You were her lawyer," I said. "If she changed something, I have a right to know. If not for me, then for the sake of her memory." He nodded slowly, then looked away. "She mentioned updating things, but nothing was finalized." His voice cracked. "That's not what she wrote to me." I stood. "Then I suppose you won't mind if I go down to the county clerk's office and check the filings myself." He didn't answer. Outside, the wind off the Monterey Bay stung sharper than usual. I walked 2 blocks to the courthouse, hands in my coat, mind racing. At the records window, the clerk tapped her keyboard and said, "Yes, we have a supplemental filing under Lorraine Whitmore, sealed but logged, dated 4 days before the official date of death." I froze. She'd done it. Lorraine had filed something, alone, without telling Danielle, without telling even me, and Curtis. He'd tried to bury it, back home. I printed the receipt and tucked it into my notebook beside the photos I'd taken of Danielle's forged signature. The pages made a new kind of weight, one that felt less like grief and more like momentum. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table Danielle had laid her lies across just days ago, and drafted a formal letter to Curtis Raines. Subject: demand for full disclosure under California Probate Code 48200. Then I dialed Maddie, Lorraine's niece, the one person Lorraine still spoke with in confidence those last months. She picked up on the second ring. "Maddie," I said, voice taut. "I need to ask you something about your aunt, about her final days." There was silence on the line. Then her voice came softer than I remembered. "Uncle," she whispered, "you're going to want to sit down." My heart thudded once, deep and slow. She gave something to her nurse. A red envelope. She said if anything went wrong, that envelope held the truth. My grip on the phone tightened. The truth was moving now, like a current, and I was done standing still. The call with Maddie left me frozen on the edge of my recliner, Lorraine's photo still in my lap. Her voice had cracked halfway through her sentence. She gave it to Nurse Sharon, a red envelope, said to mail it if anything felt off after she was gone. I pressed the phone closer. Sharon who? Sharon Bayless. She only worked 3 nights. Hospice rotation. Mom trusted her. My heart thudded once. Heavy. "And you're sure?" I saw her hand it over. She made Sharon swear. After we hung up, I sat still for minutes. No TV, no coffee, No sound. Just the old clock ticking too loudly behind me. Lorraine had been planning something she didn't trust even me with. That hurt. But maybe it was to protect me. I pulled my jacket from the hook and drove to Pacifica Serenity Care. The hospice sat quietly on a bluff, its windows catching the early sun like glass eyes blinking against grief. Inside, a nurse with gentle eyes told me Sharon no longer worked there. "She left weeks ago, sir. Didn't give a forwarding address. Just packed and left." I left my name and number, then waited. That night, just past 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Mr. Whitmore?" The voice was careful, like stepping barefoot over broken glass. "This is Sharon Bayless," I swallowed. "Thank you for calling. I believe my wife trusted you with something." Long pause. "She did, but I was warned not to get involved." "Warned by who?" More silence. Then, "I can't say on the phone, but if you still want the envelope, I'll meet you. Tomorrow. Santa Cruz Pier, 7 a.m. She hung up. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I stood by the railings of the wooden pier, wind biting through my coat. Waves crashed softly below, rhythmically washing away secrets. Sharon appeared, thin, pale, younger than I'd imagined. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her hands shook as she passed me a clear Ziploc bag with a red envelope inside. The flap was unsealed but untouched. She said if anything felt wrong, I was to get it to you. She said you'd know what to do. I nodded, lips pressed tight. Did she say anything else? Only that she didn't want to go. Not like that. She cried the last night. She was scared. I held the envelope against my chest. "There's a number in there," Sharon added. "Woman named Paige. Said she witnessed something important." I thanked her, but she was already walking away, head down, vanishing into morning fog. Back in my car, I peeled the envelope open with trembling fingers. Lorraine's handwriting greeted me, soft curves, confident lines, still alive in ink. If you're reading this, I didn't die peacefully. I stopped breathing. I was pushed into things I didn't understand. I was scared. I don't trust Danielle, not anymore. Curtis helped her, knowingly or not. Nolan too. I revoked the old will. Paige witnessed it. I gave it to Curtis to hold in escrow. He swore, but I don't know if he kept his word. She ended the letter with, "You must protect yourself. Protect what's right." Tucked behind the letter was a tiny silver key, taped to a note. Lockbox, United Bank, Castroville. I stared at it like it might burn through my palm. She planned all of this. While dying, she planned. While I sat by her bed reading poems she couldn't hear. She was orchestrating a defense. For me. For the truth. I dialed United Bank. They confirmed the lockbox existed. It was in Lorraine's name, and I was still listed as joint access. I whispered into the car's silence. "What did you put in there, Lorraine?" As I pulled out of the parking lot, my thoughts raced. But I had no idea that someone had already tried to access that box once, and failed. The bank had logged it, and they remembered the name. Danielle. The morning fog in Castroville hadn't yet lifted when I parked outside United Bank. Sunlight slanted through it in broken shafts, like it was trying to break through something it wasn't strong enough to penetrate. I sat behind the wheel for a minute, holding the key in my hand. It felt heavier now, like it carried the weight of everything Lorraine had tried to protect. Inside, the teller greeted me with a perfunctory smile. "I'm here to access a lockbox under Lorraine Whitmore," I said, passing over my ID and the small silver key. She typed, paused, then looked up. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore. It's still secure, though, interestingly, someone attempted to open it recently. Unsuccessful." My breath stalled. "Who?" She clicked again, squinting at the screen. "Curtis Whitmore," she said. "2 days before your wife passed, but he wasn't authorized, so we turned him away." A sharp, metallic taste filled my mouth. "Curtis." I followed a security guard through 2 heavy doors into the vault room. The lockbox slid out smoothly. I turned the key. Slowly. Inside were 3 items: a thick manila folder, a small SD card sealed in a padded sleeve, and a notarized envelope marked Second Will, Executed. I opened the folder first. The documents were dated 1 week before Lorraine died. Witness signatures, official notary stamp, clear instructions. Maddie Whitmore, our niece, was named as sole executor. Danielle and Curtis were removed entirely. Then I opened the envelope. It was a certified copy of the will. Identical. No ambiguity. No loopholes. Lorraine had dismantled their plans before they could finish building them. I stared at the SD card next. It was labeled, in her handwriting, "If they pressure me." My throat tightened. I drove home with both hands gripping the steering wheel like they might betray me too. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't think about what came next. At my desk, I plugged the card into my laptop. The screen flickered. Then Lorraine's face appeared. She was pale, wrapped in a hospice gown, her hair thinner than I remembered, but her eyes, they still held that sharp, calm strength, the woman who raised a daughter and helped me build a life from nothing. "Frank," she began, "if you're seeing this, then things went too far, too quickly. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you everything, because I knew how much it would hurt." She paused to steady her voice. "Curtis manipulated my medication schedule. He brought forms I didn't understand and said they were for my care, but I knew the moment Danielle stopped making eye contact with me, the moment she started talking about selling the house before I was even gone." She inhaled, lips trembling. "I revoked the old will. I made Maddie the executor. She's the only one who ever truly asked how I felt, not what I had." Another pause. "I love you. You don't deserve to live the rest of your life under their control. Don't let them shame you out of your own name, your own home. Protect what we built." The screen went black. I sat frozen, not in grief, but in something harder, hotter, like cold steel just pulled from a fire. I made 3 copies. One went into the home safe, one would go to a new lawyer, and one I thought of sliding under Danielle's door. But no, they didn't deserve a warning. Instead, I took the envelope marked Executor Maddie, sealed it again, and slid it into my coat pocket. Then I picked up the phone. "Maddie," I said, "you're going to be the one to finish what your mother started." I dialed Maddie with trembling fingers. Lorraine's video still echoed in my mind, every syllable etched with love and desperation. She picked up after the second ring. "Grandpa? I found it all," I said. "The second will, a video. She named them both, Curtis and Danielle." Silence. Then, her voice, firm. "We need legal protection now. Not from anyone they know. I'll send you someone." Within an hour, I had the address. Javier Ocampo, a small, tidy office on the east end of Monterey. Maddie knew someone who trusted him. That was enough. Ocampo was in his mid-40s. Sleeves rolled up, demeanor no nonsense. He read fast, asked only the right questions, and when he got to Lorraine's video, he paused. "I recognize her," he said quietly. I looked up. "You knew Lorraine?" He nodded. "She came to me, alone, 3 weeks before she died." My heart stuttered. "Why?" She said someone was intercepting her legal mail. She feared coercion. He turned to his computer and opened a file. A Zoom recording. There she was, frail but clear-headed. My Lorraine. "I don't trust Curtis anymore," she said. "And Danielle, she's not the girl we raised. They want control, not family." I closed my eyes. "She asked me to hold this video as a backup," Ocampo added. "I never imagined I'd need to show it." "That makes 2 of us," I muttered. He leaned forward. "We can act on this. The new will, if verified with this video and the timeline, overrides the first. We file it in probate court. Quietly. Quietly. Yes. Let them believe they've won. For now. By the time they realize, it'll be too late." I looked at Maddie, seated across from me. She nodded. "After Thanksgiving. No sudden moves. Let them plan their game. We'll flip the board." Back home, I began my role, I shuffled slower, forgot conversations I never had, pretended not to notice Danielle's backhanded jabs. Curtis showed up with groceries I didn't ask for. "Taking care of the old man," he said with a smirk. "They invited me to Thanksgiving dinner." I played dumb. "Just give me until after dessert," I said. "I'll sign whatever's left." Danielle smiled too sweetly. "Of course. Dad, you rest up." Maddie leaned in privately. "They'll choke on it, Grandpa." I smiled, but didn't reply. The night before Thanksgiving, I called Ocampo. "All pieces are in place," I said. "Good," he replied. "I'll file the will at 9 a.m. Sharp. Keep them in the dark." I hung up. My hands trembled, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something older. Justice wrapped in patience. Then came the knock. Curtis stood in the doorway, grinning, a folder under his arm. "You ready to make this official, Dad?" I looked at him, smiled faintly, and said, "After dessert, son." Just like we agreed. Thanksgiving Day was colder than usual. The sky hung low with clouds, and the ocean winds swept through Pacific Grove like a whisper of unfinished business. I arrived at Curtis and Danielle's house just before dusk, wearing the coat Lorraine had given me 2 Christmases ago. The buttons were loose now, but I didn't fix them. Let things look worn. It helped the role I was playing. Danielle answered the door, all teeth and tension. "Dad," she said, her voice bright but brittle, "we're so glad you could make it." I gave her a nod. Wouldn't miss it. Inside, the house looked like something out of a home design magazine. Autumn garlands, golden centerpieces, table runners embroidered with turkeys. But it all felt staged, like a set built to impress, not to welcome. Curtis hovered by the fireplace with a wine glass in hand, chatting with a neighbor I didn't recognize. Maddie was already there. She sat at the far end of the couch, phone in her lap, thumbs idle. When our eyes met, she gave me the smallest nod. I nodded back. We sat for dinner soon after. The table was set for 8, though only 5 chairs were filled. Curtis raised his glass. "To family," he said, "and to tough but necessary decisions that keep things running smoothly." The words hung in the air like a knife suspended over a string. I chuckled softly. "Smooth for whom?" They all laughed, except Maddie and me. Halfway through the turkey, Curtis turned to me and said, "You've had a good run, Dad. We're just trying to make sure the next part of life is comfortable." Danielle placed a thick folder next to my plate like it was another side dish. She didn't say a word. Maddie stiffened beside me. I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. I took another bite of stuffing instead. Let them wait. When dessert arrived, Curtis leaned in, his tone low and oily. "If you sign those tonight, we can get everything squared away. The nursing staff is prepped. You'll still get visits, of course." I opened the folder. On top, power of attorney documents, financial authority, medical control, everything. My name was misspelled. Again. They couldn't even get that right. "This is what Thanksgiving means to you?" I asked. Not loud, but with a weight that silenced the room. Danielle gave a tight smile. "Let's not make a scene." Maddie had her phone angled downward. She didn't need to be told. It was already recording. In fact, she had been live streaming to a private group chat of extended family since the moment Curtis placed the folder on the table. I looked directly into the lens. "To anyone watching, this is how my son-in-law and daughter treat the man who paid off this house." Curtis blinked. "What? You wanted me to sign my life away over pie," I continued. "But the only thing I'm signing is your downfall." Danielle's face drained of color. Maddie stood. "You're both on video. That folder, those words. Family court will love it." I stood too, slow and steady. "I've already filed the new will. It names Maddie as executor. It'll be public record by morning." No one said a word. Not Curtis. Not Danielle. Their hunger. Their arrogance. It had blinded them. We walked out together, Maddie and I. The night air hit my lungs like justice. "She'd be proud of you," I said. Maddie slipped her hand into mine. Of us. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Ocampo. Court accepted filing. You're officially executor now. I didn't smile. Not yet. There was still more to do. Monday morning came with a gray sky and the kind of chill that settled deep into the bones. I wore my old wool coat again. Not because of the weather, but because Lorraine had loved how it made me look like a man still capable of holding a line. The sign outside Burke Feldman's office gleamed dully in the morning light. Javier Ocampo was already waiting for me inside. Papers spread across the polished mahogany desk like weapons readied for battle. Congratulations, he said, tapping the first document. The court has confirmed you as the sole executor of Lorraine's estate, including full rights to the Whitmore Trust and primary real property. My eyes scanned the seal, the judge's signature. Real, irrefutable. Curtis tried to sneak in a late amendment, Ocampo added, sliding another paper across the desk. Claimed Lorraine added him back into the trust, signed with a different notary. Dated 2 days before her death. I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, the notary was on vacation? Out of state, Ocampo said, smirking. And the timestamp? The system auto-rejected it. He didn't know the bank log's notary location data. Print me everything. Certified. And give yourself limited power of representation. I'm going to need backup. Ocampo handed me the documents. Where are you going now? Home? I said, standing. Or at least what's left of it. The house on Forest Avenue looked different now. Danielle had painted the front door a trendy eggshell blue. New curtains peeked out from every window. There were unfamiliar planters on the porch, and the scent of rosemary drifted from somewhere in the yard. My name might not have been on the welcome mat, but it was still etched on the deed. I walked up and rang the bell. Curtis opened it mid-conversation with a financial advisor in tow, holding a laptop and spreadsheets. Dad, he said, blinking like I was some ghost refusing to leave. We're in a meeting. I held up the paperwork. This is still legally my house. Danielle appeared behind him, her smile faltering the moment she saw the seal on the documents. You can't just walk in here, she hissed. Yes, Maddie said, stepping forward from the hallway. He can. Curtis puffed up. This is harassment. I didn't respond. I stepped inside. The financial advisor stood frozen. I turned to him. If you're here to discuss assets, you're talking to the wrong man. Curtis tried to pivot, pulling out his own documents. This amendment overrides that. It's signed and witnessed. I let him finish, then handed over the notary's log, location stamped, date marked. Your notary was in Arizona that day, I said. You forged it. Danielle gasped. Maddie took out her phone. I've also got your text. Curtis? Maddie said coldly, showing him the message. If Dad doesn't budge, I've got a workaround, legal-looking enough. Danielle's knees buckled. She slumped into the armrest of a chair Lorraine used to love. You played yourselves, I said quietly. And her memory. No one moved. I'm giving you 24 hours to vacate. I'm not doing this with police or shouting. You can keep whatever furniture she never touched. Curtis looked at me like I'd become someone else. No threats? He asked. I don't need threats. I have the truth in the law. You two had your chance. I turned toward the door. Maddie walked beside me. As we got into the car, she asked, Do you think they'll come after you now? I started the engine. Let them. I'm done hiding. My phone buzzed. It was Ocampo. Danielle just tried to withdraw $80 or $1,000 from Lorraine's charity fund. Bank flagged it. Do you want to press charges? I looked out at the evening sky. Dusk melting into the pines. I think it's time. I was halfway through brushing my teeth when the phone rang. Ocampo's number lit up the screen. At this hour, it could only mean one thing. She tried to wire $80, $1,000 out of Maeve's charity fund, he said. No preamble. Bank flagged it. The system auto-paused the transaction and alerted us. For a moment, I just stood there, toothpaste foam resting at the corner of my mouth. The silence between us louder than words. I'll forward you the footage, he added. It's bad. When the video landed in my inbox, I sat at the kitchen table where Maeve once kept a small orchid plant, now replaced with a stack of legal forms. I hit play. Danielle entered the bank in a long black coat, sunglasses still on, though it was well past sunset. She signed the withdrawal slip under a different name, lips pursed with impatience. She passed recently, she told the teller with a weary sigh. This is just a formality. The teller looked uneasy, double-checking the documents. Danielle leaned in, voice firm. It's fine. I'm her daughter-in-law. I've handled this before. I watched her speak for Maeve, lie with such ease. The woman who once refused to attend a single charity gala now tried to erase what Maeve had poured her soul into. A flashback came uninvited, Danielle sipping wine during a backyard barbecue, laughing. All that money she's got tied up in single mom scholarships? We'll liquidate that crap once Frank's out of the picture. I closed the laptop, reached for the wedding photo Maeve had kept by her bedside. Her smile still warm, eyes still clear. I'm sorry, I whispered. I called Maddie. She answered from a softly lit kitchen, the murmur of another family's Thanksgiving echoing behind her. Grandpa? Her smile faded the moment she saw my face. What happened? I shared the screen. Her mouth dropped open as she scanned the bank alert and saw Danielle's signature. She really did that? She did, I said. But this isn't your burden, Maddie. She wiped her eyes. We should tell the police. We will, and we'll notify the nonprofit. Her betrayal doesn't end with money. It touches the people Maeve helped. Maddie nodded. Then we'll make sure they know the truth. It was nearly midnight when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Curtis, alone. No swagger. No fake charm, just a man weighed down by the mess he'd helped create. I didn't know she'd go that far, he said, staring at the floor. I didn't answer, just stepped aside and let him in. He sank into the armchair across from the fireplace. His voice cracked. She's planning to leave. Run. Maybe. I think she knew she got caught. I studied him carefully. Were the tears real? Or just another desperate play? You watched it all happen, I said evenly. You watched her dig and never took the shovel away. He said nothing. After a moment, he stood. I just thought you should know. No plea for help? I asked. His shoulders drooped. Would it matter? He closed the door behind him. I sat at my desk and opened a new document. My formal complaint to the nonprofit board was short, direct, backed with the flagged transaction and Danielle's signature. Attached was my affidavit, already notarized. Then I pulled out one last envelope from the drawer. Maeve's handwritten letter, the one no one else knew about. If ever the fund is endangered, let it be returned to those it once saved, she had written. My eyes stung as I typed the closing lines. I clicked send. I'll make sure they know what you stood for. Maeve, I whispered, no matter what they tried to erase. I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating relentlessly against the nightstand. It buzzed like it was trying to rattle itself apart. 6 missed calls, 11 text messages, one from Maddie, all caps. Turn on channel 7 now. I grabbed the remote with hands still stiff from sleep. By the time the screen flickered to life, the headline was already burning across the bottom. Local woman caught attempting to embezzle from widow's memorial fund. Danielle's blurred DMV photo filled the screen. The reporter, too polished to betray emotion, read out details that shouldn't have been public. Sources close to the estate say the suspect tried to withdraw $80,000 from a charity account intended for single mothers. The fund was created in honor of the late Maeve Whitlock, a well-known local philanthropist. Attorney Javier Ocampo confirmed the incident is under review by both the bank and district authorities. I didn't need to guess who the source was. I stood frozen, phone still in my hand, brushing aside the disbelief with a slow breath. Not pride, not shame, just a strange, hollow clarity. It was out. The world knew. By noon, my porch had become a stage. Neighbors I hadn't seen in months stopped by. Some brought casseroles, some brought condolences. You always kept to yourself. Frank, Mr. Wilkins said, shaking his head. Can't believe all this was going on. An older couple from 2 houses down left a container of soup on the steps. We're just sorry for everything, the wife said, eyes misty. I nodded, said thank you, but didn't step out. I wasn't ready to share the inside of this storm with anyone who hadn't felt it from the beginning. Back inside, I sat and watched the news cycle repeat. Danielle's face, Curtis's name, Maeve's fund, looped like a slow-motion car crash no one could look away from. My home was finally quiet, but I felt no peace. Later that afternoon, Curtis came stumbling up the walkway, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, sweat clinging to his temples despite the chill. "They've frozen everything," he said before I even opened the screen door. "Our joint accounts, the brokerage. I got an alert our credit cards are blocked." I let him in. I didn't offer him coffee. "She's gone," he continued, collapsing into the nearest chair. "Took a rental car. I think she's in Ohio. Or maybe she said Omaha. I don't even know anymore." "She said what she needed," I replied. He looked up, eyes raw. "She'll go to jail, Dad." "You let her do it," I said calmly. "You watched her destroy what Maeve built." He covered his face. "I didn't think she'd go that far." "You didn't stop her." That was the end of it. The board meeting was on Zoom. The members of Maeve's nonprofit all appeared in small boxes on my screen. Women she'd mentored, fundraised with, loved like sisters. "Mr. Whitlock," one began, her voice firm but kind. "Thank you for not sweeping this under the rug." "She never would have let this go quiet," another added. "She believed in accountability." I nodded. "Maeve gave her life to that fund. I couldn't let it be stolen from her in death." A pause. Then a board member with silver hair and steady eyes, Maeve's closest friend, spoke. "She'd be proud of how you protected her name, her mission." The board voted unanimously to rename the scholarship the Maeve Whitlock Legacy Grant. I said thank you, then quietly left the meeting. That night, I sat by the old armchair Maeve once filled so easily. Her knitted afghan still rested across the back. No television, no music. Just the steady hum of a house slowly regaining peace. My phone buzzed once more. "Ocampo. The DA wants to speak with you, before we move forward with charges." I stared at the message for a moment, then stood and walked to the kitchen window. Outside, the world kept spinning. Inside, it was finally still. "It's time," I whispered. The courthouse hallway was colder than usual. My shoes echoed off the linoleum as I walked in alone, heart steady, breath measured. I'd spent months holding everything in: grief, betrayal, resolve. This was the day it would all settle. Ocampo met me just before the hearing room, his clipboard tucked under one arm. "She's here," he said quietly. "Alone." "No Curtis." When we walked in, Danielle was already seated, dressed in a stiff navy blazer and oversized sunglasses, like armor that didn't fit anymore. A defense attorney sat beside her, whispering something. She didn't respond. The judge entered. The room stilled. "We're here to examine claims of misuse of charitable funds and conflicting trustee rights in the estate of Maeve Whitlock." Danielle's attorney rose first. "My client acted in good faith as co-trustee of the Maeve Whitlock Memorial Fund." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have documentation establishing her as a legal co-trustee?" Danielle didn't flinch, but she didn't speak either. That's when the courtroom doors opened. Maddie stepped inside, envelope clutched tight in one hand. She walked past the rows of observers and handed it to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. "My grandmother's addendum," Maddie said clearly. "Dated and notarized 2 weeks before she passed." The judge broke the seal, read silently, then looked up. "In the event of my death," she read aloud, "I remove Danielle Keene from all fiduciary responsibility and name Franklin Whitlock sole trustee of all charitable, estate, and personal accounts." Danielle's lawyer objected, but the judge raised a hand. "The seal is valid. This document supersedes prior arrangements." Ocampo gave a small nod. Danielle went pale. The judge's gavel came down hard. "All accounts under Danielle Keene's previous control are hereby frozen. This matter is referred to the district attorney." I didn't smile, but I felt something settle deep inside me. Outside, Reporters swarmed. Miss Keene, any comments on the ruling? She shoved a microphone away, her lawyer pushing through the crowd to get her to the car. The cameras clicked. The questions flew, but her silence was louder than anything they said. I waited by the curb. Maddie joined me a moment later. She doesn't get to touch Grandma's name again, she said. I nodded. Let's go home. We walked away from the noise. No need to look back. The house was warm when we returned, quiet, familiar. I hadn't stepped into Maeve's sewing room since the day we lost her. Everything was untouched, her last quilt still pinned to the board. I walked in, picked it up. Maddie stepped beside me. Want help finishing it? I nodded. We sat, side by side, threading needle through fabric. She believed in people more than paper, I said quietly. But sometimes, paper's the only thing that keeps people honest. She smiled. And you kept both. From the mantel, Maeve's photo looked down on us, a quiet witness to the end of a long, painful chapter. Grief doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter when you protect what mattered. Maeve didn't leave me rich. She left me right. And as long as her name stands clean, so do I. Beneath the soft lamp glow, Maddie and I stitched the last border. When we turned the quilt over, she pointed. Embroidered in Maeve's careful script were the words, "Legacy is what love leaves behind." And finally, I believed it.